Morning, everyone. Welcome to our podcast with Prasannanshu. We are students of NLU Delhi to take a podcast with our esteemed professor, Professor Prasannanshu sir. So I'm Darshit Agarwal.
I'm Anushka. I'm Akanksha.
And we are here to interview our sir over the topic how law and justice is portrayed in popular media and social media as a whole. So sir, we would like to know your opinion that how social media as whole influences the whole idea of justice and how does it influences the idea of justice in people's mind, the commoners' mind.
Thank you very much. Justice is one of the basic preoccupations of human beings. I think our societies are guided by it, our personal lives are guided by it, and people are motivated and mobilized by the concept of justice if they feel some injustice is being done. So there is a very wide range, like some people misuse this also by creating a false or doctored concept of injustice. So that is for managing the perceptions. But in general, the media has a great role because media is a continuum of the individual and the society's concepts, ideas, and perceptions. So, as I said in the first sentence, that justice plays a very important role in the lives of human beings. So, media is also not untouched from this, it reflects it. That is first point. What is the concept of justice for people? And second is it also helps in shaping the concept of justice and evolution of laws also.
How does social media in particular has it been exploited by politically motivated people to spread fake news, and how much have they succeeded in
I don't have the statistics, but it is significant. Fake news is a big problem.
it? And with the concept of justice and law, how much of misinformation about justice has been spread through social
It is very significant, and I think that has become a tool in the hands of many people who have ulterior motives. It may be political motives, it may be religious motives, it may be motive for earning money. People are misusing it. But the concept is that to stop the misuse, should we stop the right and liberty of expression also? So that is the problem. That is why we are not able to eliminate this totally.
How does social media in particular has it been exploited by politically motivated people to spread fake news, and how much have they succeeded in it?
I don't have the statistics, but it is significant. Fake news is a big problem.
And with the concept of justice and law, how much of misinformation about justice has been spread through social
It is very significant, and I think that has become a tool in the hands of many people who have ulterior motives. It may be political motives, it may be religious motives, it may be motive for earning money. People are misusing it. But the concept is that to stop the misuse, should we stop the right and liberty of expression also? So that is the problem. That is why we are not able to eliminate this totally.
Sir, another question. How has coming of social media or electronic era shaped the medium in which justice is influenced and delivered?
See, social media is a very democratic media. In good old days, the media was all state owned. I think that is the history of media at anywhere, but specifically in our country, it was state owned, like All India Radio and Doordarshan. That was the format. But with the advent of social media, all of you have your cell phones, and with that, you can propagate anything. It can be entertainment, it can be your personal promotion, it can be education, it can be the concept of justice or injustice, it can be a debate on the laws, and laws are very deeply connected with politics. everywhere and by nature. So that is why it has become a great enabler.
Sir, do you think that how the justice is portrayed through social media, the pros of it outweighs the cons?
No, I don't think so.
I second that, to be honest.
Yeah.
So besides social media, we see that in movies also, in songs, movies, and this sort of media also, justice is not portrayed properly as it is, what it actually happens in real life versus something that it is portrayed in movies. It's two ways difference. So in that way, do you believe that this portrayal in movies and this portrayal in songs actually somewhere or the other is influencing the opinion of commoners in negative sense?
Well, that is sort of a loaded question, but I think that literature is the origin, and literature is being depicted in different forms, including movies and other expressions. And literature has always debated the concept of justice and the process of the justice dispensation process. So that is a very healthy thing, and the cons cannot outweigh in any way. Why it is a very healthy thing? Because it gives an opportunity to the people to participate in a debate, either passively or actively, about the concept of justice. Our society is based only on one concept, that is justice. Every society. If people think that the society is not just, if injustice is being done to them, or they have no hope of getting justice, I think people will not come together and make a society. We will go back to the stage when even I think as a species, biologically, we are a society or social animal. So either it is a small society like a tribe, or it is a big society like the modern countries and the global village. We are genetically disposed towards it. But even in a tribe, I think if people felt that justice is not being done, I don't think people will follow the chief or the rule of the head, whatever the process of choosing that head may be.
We see that many a times deviance from formal procedures is shown in movies and picture, while it is not true in actual life, where procedure and court proceedings are on a very formal side.
Yes.
So that's why sometimes it influences.
So there is creative expression, and secondly, movies are not only or especially about discussing justice and law. That is generally a side theme for them. The main theme may be entertainment, it may even be politics, it may be other things. So we cannot blame movies. It is not a law school class. We don't. Will you go and watch, even as a law student, will you go and watch a movie which is depicting a very formal professor lecturing in a class, and if that is the only thing in the movie, people will go. But even out of law students, it will be a minority, because the purpose for which we are going, it is not mainly education, but it has educating influence, and not necessarily educating. The important thing is that it makes us think. Thinking is important about law and justice.
How do you think the portrayal of law and justice differs across cultures? Like, how do you think American courtroom dramas differ from Indian ones?
See, there, I will not even name specific societies. In any society, the concept of justice is different, number one. The process of law is different, like jury system and the type of system we have. So they are different. So it will be depicted differently. That's very natural. The concerns are different. In one country, the concern may be, for example, about immigrants. In another, it may be more about poverty. It is not that in one country, one of these things will not be present. All the matters are present, all the issues are there, generally speaking, but the focus of a society may be different. Challenges may be different. The challenge to the existence of the society may be different. Lawmakers will react likewise. And the biggest lawmakers are the people, people's opinion. And this opinion is being formulated by media of any shade, type, and kind.
That's why the difference comes.
Yes. In good old days, even the poets used to be the media. Like in Cicero's time, Archias was a poet. So what was he doing? Why he became so important? Why Archias was an important person? Poets are not so important these days, at least societally, or the amount of money they get or amount of attention. Why? Because media has taken over the function. But in those days, they were the main people who propagated the king's glory, the rulers' legitimacy, etc. That is why they were so important. Now, media is doing it. Sometimes justly and sometimes unjustly. So, we are human beings. If we have the freedom to do the right things, then some people will certainly abuse the freedom and do things which are not according to the standards of the society or in the best interest of the society. But then again, a very important perspective is there, the very fundamental concept of democracy, that every person is wise and intelligent, and it is left to the wisdom of the viewers what they believe. But if it becomes an extreme problem, only then the law should interfere. For example, incitement to violence is there, and it has effect also, or potential of having effect. If some person with a mental ailment goes to the social media, everyone can go and talks about like killing a part, everyone else or a part of the society. Do you think it will have any effect? Generally not. Right?
Sir, as you mentioned that poetry is not given that much importance nowadays, but nowadays we
What
can
is not given? Can you please repeat?
poetry.
Poetry.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but nowadays stand-up comedy is very popular, especially among the youngsters. So, what do you have to say on how do comedians use humor to comment on justice?
They do use, they comment on several aspects. For example, there were several laws recently, so comedians were commenting on both sides of opinion,
Yes.
NRC and CA and all this. That
Sir,
has been.
but sir, sorry to interrupt, but sir, many comedians were sent to jail due to their opinion, like not overtly, but we can say that underlying idea was due to their opinions only. So, what do you have to say on that? Like it was like restricting their freedom of speech.
No, that is imperfection of democracy or subversion of democracy, whatever way you want to see. So they should have the, ideally democracy means they should have the freedom to express themselves until and unless some reasonable restrictions are there. But now if you have to abuse this clause of reasonable restriction, then it is difficult to prevent, but we have to be cautious, we have to be vigilant as citizens of a democracy that such things should not happen.
So what we see is that
A lot of law is subjective.
Yes, sir.
Decisions are subjective. Sometimes it is essential. I am not saying it is not essential to stop people. They can really, for example, spread harmful medical information or disinformation. That is possible. They should be prevented. But where is the line?
Yes, sir. That line is very
That
blurred.
is subjective. Rather, when we say subjective, then the line is not there.
so what we see is the criticizing of idea of inconsistencies throughout the law through various medias, whether it's movies, whether social media, whether stand-up comedy. However, sir, today stand-up comedy is gaining more and more popularity, sir. So according to you, does this criticizing of idea of inconsistencies in law by stand-up comedy, is it more popular and gaining more popularity than other medias?
Obviously, but even poetry has morphed itself, or rather, some forms of it have become more popular. Like we have a lot of poets on the television who are making only political commentary. So, sorry, it is very clear to see their political loyalties, and some people even argue there is no poetry in it at all. Now that is again a subjective thing. What is poetry? It is very very difficult. I can give you 10 definitions of poetry, but they will be from my perspective. So maybe from another perspective, poetry may include that.
So there's also this new mixture of poetry and comedy. So some people are also doing that and then show their opinions.
As students of law, I think only one thing should be fundamental to us: freedom of expression. We should not get into the issue of genres.
So that's a very great point that you said just
Yeah,
now.
these are all different expressions of freedom of expression
Yes.
and its misuse. Only two things should concern us: that what will count as misuse, abuse, and what is freedom, and how to protect the freedom. When we are talking of abuse, then also we are talking of how to protect the freedom of speech.
So can't we say that all these questions are kind of subjective, like deep down?
Whole of law is subjective,
Yeah.
justice is subjective. When justice is subjective, then the instrument to achieve justice will be subjective. Like for me, justice may be one thing, for you it may be another thing. It is rather.
So that's why people usually say that whole law school is some can be described as in two words. It depends. Like all the answers to any legal question is it depends.
It depends. And it is rather simplification. It depends on 100 things, 1,000 things, million things. And those things are cultural elements. And what is culture? In this perspective, I can say that culture is your belief system and also the concept of right and wrong. Ultimately, that is law. Concept of right and wrong. If a majority of the population believes that something is wrong, like in Ireland, a lot of people believe abortion is wrong. So, it is wrong there. Law is also the same. In England, not many people feel the same thing. So, it is right there. I have just given you a very extreme example, but
Yes,
there
sir.
are, you can extend this logic ad infinitum.
In your personal opinion, is there any particular piece of media that you feel offers a particularly nuanced or accurate description of law?
I will not answer this. Thank you. Freedom of speech includes freedom
Not speaking.
to not to speak.
Do you think that the portrayal of legal system in media has changed over the years, and has it become more accurate, or is it becoming more sensationalized?
In the light of the foregoing, I would say everything changes, even from media to media, media house to media house. Things change, but ultimately, change does not mean that the portrayal is not there. Portrayal is there, even when people used to have stage dramas in times of Shakespeare, or in our country in the times of Kalidas. So political elements used to be there, and also with it the concept of justice, whether the king was just or not just, a commentary on that used to be there, although sometimes it was hidden for obvious reasons. So it has always been there, and media has a whole range. It is not just restricted to YouTube or WhatsApp or a couple of other apps.
Even to certain extent, newspaper also forms a part.
Yes. And it has always been alleged that many newspapers can be, or they are alleged to be inclined with one political party or the other, one religious perspective or the other. This is a human world. So we can never say whether it is corruption or it is their genuine worldview. So that is why we should not have very strict censorship laws.
True, sir.
But as it is changing over the years, do you think it is the portrait is becoming more accurate, more nuanced?
I think in my previous answer I have said I don't think so. It's a circular thing. It remains the same. If you go back to the times of court poets, do you think it was less nuanced? It was totally nuanced then.
True, sir.
They invented history at times if required for the king.
That's double-edged warden or all such words.
In India also, we had a very strong tradition of court poetry. I am avoiding the names. The reason is because now they may be identified as castes.
True.
So, not to hurt people, I don't think that now it is only a matter of caste, but certainly the tradition was there. So, I am commenting on the tradition.
Sir, as you have mentioned in class that you are kind of interested in stand-up comedies and even your whole class, like, it's very humorous. So what if you were a stand-up comedian for a day or like in general? So how would you change the way justice has been portrayed in such setups, or how would you contribute?
My aim will not be to change the portrayal, rather I will take a pot shot at all the things I feel are not right. Left and right.
That's a
That
fun-
is my style.
So at the last, over the whole overarching interviews, we would like to, like in conclusion, we would like to know that how in whole the media has transformed the idea of justice, whether it's through not just poetry, whether through movies, whether through social media, and popular days through stand-up comedy. It has in whole seen that various protest movements, people leaving their posts, newspaper avoiding publishing their newspapers. We have seen that such movements have at times went against the improper checks by the government over the democracy and rights of people. So are these, according or in your sense, very fundamental to the idea of justice or very fundamental to the idea of portrayal?
Well, I am a bit confused about the question. Can you please put it in some simple words?
Sure, sir. So what we have seen that whether it's through newspaper, whether through movies, whether through social media, whether through stand-up comedy, what we have seen is many instances protest was done by the people, like many stand-up comedians avoid doing their shows, newspaper avoid printing, publishing their editions. So these steps, do they actually in sense create some sort of power or create some sort of movement towards the furtherance of law and justice?
This is a process. If we look at it in the broadest of senses, no absolute answer can be possible for what you asked, but there can be different perspectives. One perspective is that it's a self-healing process, self-correcting process. If someone is taking the liberty too far, then the society is rejecting it. This is one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is that certainly if people are organized on the basis of religious, political or some other beliefs and faiths, then they have the potential of curbing the freedom permanently, irrevocably, irreversibly. So the danger is also there, but I think ultimately we have to negotiate between these two perspectives. The reality must lie somewhere in between.
And finally, to wrap up the session, I would like to ask you: do you think students entering the legal profession have a sort of they're influenced by the portrayal of law in media? And if yes, do you attempt to address that while you teach?
We all are citizens, whether we are a law student or whatever student or teacher. So social media has its influence, and sometimes it can be harmful also. Like people have a wrong image of the law. They think it is all glamour, like, but many people after graduating, they have to struggle for their livelihood. This is generally not portrayed in a powerful way. The real issues are not portrayed, but the romanticized view is rather portrayed more, or is picked up, or is more visible, we can say. So some students are misled into believing that that is law. Law actually means, like any profession, studying a lot, knowing the human nature, and serving.
Hmm.
So that is according to me law. But in the movies, what we see is that a very well dressed lawyer comes and just sways the court, and we see malpractice is also there, and a romanticized view of the court is there very frequently. So, and of judges also. So frequently students come to me after doing their graduation, sir, I want to become a judge. I say, wonderful, but have you seen a lot of movies, or do you really know what you are aiming for? So generally it happens, very frequently it happens that they have just watched movies, and or maybe they have the concept they will have a special type of car with lights and
So even before entering the law school, we have this like very romanticized version of our college life about law, and then we come here for the reality check.
I think the law school should become more like that reality, and that reality should become more like law school. There should be some meeting ground, then perhaps it will be a better situation.
And
What I mean is law school should not be so serious,
Yes.
and movies should not be depicting that you are only having fun and nothing else.
thanks a lot, sir. We all will learn from all the insights that you have given about.
You
And-
made some really great points.
True, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.